transition. And the purpose of this webinar is to provide the foundation and strategy and direction of the new Carolinas, Virginia Minority Supplier Development Council. I know over the last year and a half there's been a lot of transition, a lot of questions about the direction of the council. I know over the last 10 years that I have been affiliated with Ferguson. I've been in this role, in the business diversity role, starting our supplier diversity initiative. There was some transition, the Tidewater Purchasing Council, then it became the Virginia Minority Supplier Development Council, and now it's the Carolinas Virginia Council. But you will find, once Eric goes through his presentation, it's a very exciting time. It's going to open up a lot of opportunities for our corporates to expand their reach to MBEs within the network. And for our MBEs, it will allow opportunities to expand your business outside of the Commonwealth of Virginia. So we're very pleased to have Eric's leadership. He'll give you a little bit of overview about his background, but he is definitely the right president and CEO to lead us as we move forward. And for those of you probably wondering, Tracy Jeter has transitioned. She's still with the council. She is the president and CEO of the council in the Capital Region, which now consists of Northern Virginia, the Washington, D.C. market, and Maryland. So we will be doing a lot of collaboration with the Capital Region, with a lot of the strategies and opportunities. So again, welcome aboard, and I'm going to now welcome Mr. Eric Watson.
Thank you, Kathy. Thanks for all of your great support, and good morning and welcome to everyone. Happy New Year. I'm excited about 2014 and the opportunity to cover our work in 2013 and the 2014 strategy and beyond. You notice we titled this Transitioning to the Next Level, which really reflects the rich work that's been done in this space over the years, but recognizing the need to move to the next level. That was something that excites me as I've come into the job after 35 years in corporate America, and in the last 8 months it's been refreshing and exciting to be able to work in a space with entrepreneurs and other corporate partners, of which a lot of those I knew before, to move this work to the next level. So let's get started, if you will. Valerie, would you give us our first slide? So when you think about how we got to this point, I want to back up a little bit and give a little bit of context regarding the transition. NMSDC, for the last two and a half years, 3 years, was going through a restructuring that really was brought about by the request of corporate partners and MBEs, asking for change and really more accountability for councils and requesting service at the level commensurate with their fees. So that, to me, is pretty consistent with the business structure and operating like a business. So you'll notice that consistent with what we've done in the past, the benefits to corporation have to do with having a network to support you, but we need to have consistency. The new network will provide you with a larger pool of MBEs for corporation and a value proposition. I'll talk about it a little more, but again, that value proposition is going to relate to corporations getting the support and the response from MBEs that fit their business and fit their business needs. From an MBE standpoint, MBEs also ask for, a more consistent certification process. So now certification is recognized nationally. If you're certified with the Carolinas, Virginia Council, you now are certified on a national level. If you want to work in another city, you don't have to have the reciprocal there. You can go and do work in another city, another region. If you decide to open a business, there's a subscription process that'll give you the ability to be on the ground there. Also, the benefit to MBEs is, in that network, you've got the broader access to corporate members. And something that I think is evolving but really is going to be beneficial is the database process that will allow our MBEs to connect and access opportunities through our corporate members. So that change and the change on a national level was driven by our corporate members' requests and our MBEs, and I think it'll be very successful. Next slide, please. So when you think about the Carolinas and Virginia Council, things are very straightforward, but the thing that is key, our key objectives are to develop relationships between our corporate members and our certified minority enterprises. But we've got to move to make sure that those relationships are increased, that they're moved to more of a strategic partnership, and that the expansion of these opportunities really create economic impact, and if I must say, sustainable economic impact. So the net of this is, I'm sure that we've been doing this work and all have been doing their best. But at the end of the day, MBEs go into business to create and grow wealth, and that's what we have to deliver. Our corporate members and our private institutions that work with us are looking to grow revenue. So those are things that we would ask you to hold us accountable for, because at the end of the day, that's what businesses exist to do. Thank you. Next slide. So, just a juxtaposition of this. I think we have before us breathtaking opportunities requiring alignment and trust for success. And I say that, and I use that quote simply because it speaks to the fact that the needs of corporations and the needs of MBEs have to be aligned. When they're misaligned, you could have a lot of great action and activity, but not getting a result. So that's true. The next slide that you have in front of you speaks to the fact that I've said to my staff, and many of you that I've had an audience with, it's going to require change on all of us. And unfortunately, sometimes when we seek change, the piece that we forget is, have we actually changed ourselves? So that change for the council, my staff, and for you is really growth. And for MBEs and corporate members, there's also going to be the need for reciprocal growth and change. And at the end of the day, that's what we're going to be about. Next slide, please. So I'm going to give you a little foundation that I think is important from my background and how the council can begin to create the right level of support for our members. Starting with our vision, we clearly have to create more innovative ways of working, doing business in new and different ways, recognizing both generational differences, the level of the different MBEs, and also the different industries and the levels of our corporations. And respectfully, not all corporations are at the same level, have the same opportunities. We need to be innovative in how we bring people together to make sure that there's a true connection. Connected to that is elevating our brand. A number of people not only don't seem to know about us, and that's why I'm glad to be here in this market to talk about it, but not only do they not know about us, they don't know really what we do. We've got to elevate our brand and make sure that there is more gravity and pull toward us as opposed to our pushing things out, asking if we can help. And at the end of the day, our model has to transform. That model has to be one that creates sustainable impact. I think all of us who are on the line and involved in this work truly think that we can make a difference for ourselves, for our families, and on a societal level. But at the end of the day, if the model is not one sustainable, we tend to have a more transactional model, and that we have to move away from. Our mission sort of remains the same, expanding business opportunities for corporate and members and MBEs. But again, it's how we do that that has to be the key. And that means we have to be creating wealth. No one goes into business not to make money. I've gotten pushed a little bit about focusing on that. But after working in a corporation for 35 years and understanding how entrepreneurs work very hard, 24/7 to create a business, that is a great thing to do. But at the end of the day, they're looking to grow their business and make money. So our values, if you look at them, they're focused on how I think we have to operate. We're in a business that, foundationally has to have trust. And conflict is the very next thing, because there's no way in any business when you bring people together there's not going to be conflict. But if you have the right level of trust, you can manage through that conflict, get the right level of commitment, increase accountability, and at the end of the day, this council is responsible for delivering on the promise to our corporate members and our MBEs. Next slide, please. This one is probably not new. As you know, on a national level, and all of our councils have been set up to certify, develop, connect, and advocate for this work. When I talk about innovation and transforming the model, I think certification can't just be a transactional activity. We have to provide access once you're certified, and then we have to develop the MBEs and develop them to create wealth. In creating wealth for MBEs and developing them, there's also development on a corporate side. Those connections, if developed together, create strategic partnerships. So if you think differently about the certification process not being so episodic, it has to be one that connects people together for strategic partnerships. And lastly, advocacy. I'm just a proponent that we can advocate for a lot of things, and historically in the space we have. But if we don't have empowered MBEs and supplier development managers, we don't get the job done. So that's the thing that we really want to elevate as part of the brand that, in our council. Next slide, please. This may be a bit of an eye chart, so I'm gonna just deal with the two end, the bumpers of this slide. Our stakeholders are MBEs, corporations, and strategic partners. Those are the people that we exist to serve. What is exciting on the far end of that, KPIs, those have been created nationally. For me, this is one of the linchpins to how we make sure we execute for you. We're going to be measured by MBEs, by national members, and those first two KPIs really get to my council will be paid based on your response to how we deliver service. I think that creates the right level of accountability and reciprocity between the council and its members to make sure we're delivering. We are in a business to deliver service to you, and that's important. The other KPIs have to do with being, financially strong so that we can operate. And at the end of the day, we've got to operate effectively. So those two things are critically important. The action steps, so to speak, to the services that are going to be provided at a high level. We will have industry groups, CEO academies, education and training, mentoring, assessments for organization, matchmakers, and value proposition. And value proposition development isn't that there's a mystery about this work, but I think as businesses grow, it's important for them to understand how this work fits within their go-forward strategy. That's MBEs and corporations. So we can always dig deeper into this slide, but I think the first two components of this slide and the action steps are critical. Thank you. Next slide. So value proposition. When you think about the value proposition, and this may be a bit of Watsonism, but the reality is the value proposition probably has been straightforward for years. What is important is that you execute against it. So, minority businesses are one of the fastest growing business segments. Secondarily, the growth in the ethnic population continues to increase. Minority businesses create the most jobs. And at the end of the day, economic impact across our society is driven by small business and minority businesses. The key to this, for me, from a value proposition, is making sure that we have cultural competence that connects where corporations and businesses going and where our MBEs are from the standpoint of building their business. That's the piece that if that context isn't connected and understood, then there's going to be a miss. These things have been for real and salient for years. That I think they get more complex as businesses change, which they're going to do, as businesses evolve, as they create strategies, and as MBEs decide that they want to grow and change their business. You've got to understand, we've got to understand the culture that exists and help both come together with more alignment. So speaking of alignment, I come back to our value pyramid. Our value pyramid basically talks about results at the top if we don't have alignment, we won't be able to create the right level of results. So this is just a different picture and diagram of what I talked about relative to our values, and putting those values in place when it comes to executing, achieving business results, in a trusting environment, managing conflict, having the kind of commitment that recognizes commitment on both corporations and MBEs for success is critical. Accountability to deliver, and actually making sure that we deliver results that are sustainable. Next slide. I spoke to the fact that execution is important, and you'll see a couple of comments that I've already talked about, being focused, intentional, and deliberate. I think that's key for us to make sure that there's transparency in when things are working and not working. We want to hear from you when you're not getting what you want, because you pay for services, and we also need to be transparent with you when you're not delivering. That's both corporations and MBEs. But at the end of the day, that has to be done in an innovative, in a way that has brand elevation, and in a transform model. So when we talk about growth, when we talk about connections, there has to be a collaboration. These things have to be creating wealth for our organizations, and they have to be increasing revenue. Capacity has to grow for our MBEs, and capability has to grow. So when you think about a corporation, and this is one of our strategic elements that we're working on, we want our MBEs to be clear about how the corporations they work for make money, so they can be helping them make money. Also, that our corporations understand our MBEs and what they do and how their organizations can help them. That's the kind of cultural competency that's going to be needed. So we hope to provide clear direction about how we develop our MBEs and corporations. We hope to have strategic partnerships that help create the level of understanding of how execution is happening, when it's not happening, that we don't get to situations where we engage individuals, there's not delivery, but at the end of the day, people are actually having success. Some of our industry focuses reflect the current economy, healthcare, construction, and manufacturing, not just those that we're going to focus on, but we do know that our corporate partners, these are spaces where there is a need for us to do better work in creating opportunities for our MBEs. And in closing, there's a couple of comments here, and I'd love to have Kathy respond in summary to this to my presentation, and also respond to questions. Three folks that I'm going to quote here are pretty well recognized, but Henry Ford said, "Coming together is the beginning. Staying together is a process of working together for his success." Working together is the key here. In the 35 years of work, in the 20 in diversity and inclusion, having inclusion doesn't come by accident. It requires work. And working together is not something that's going to just come through osmosis. So we've got heavy lifting to do as a council to make sure we're delivering for you as a partner. And that's my commitment to you. And then Winston Churchill said, "I have a beautiful strategy. You should occasionally look for results." I think that's as simple as it gets. MBEs are in business to make money. Corporations exist to make money. We have to be in a space that we are having the opportunity to ameliorate that, not get in the way, but be a part of success for both parties. And then coming up on Martin Luther King Day, I think there is the reality of reciprocity and collaboration. That's a mandate for success, which speaks to whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. This is the interrelated structure of reality. And that speaks to the relationship that we have to create between our MBEs, our corporations, and the council. We have to be interrelated, connected, understand culture and how we operate so that there's reciprocal success. So that's the slides. I'm sorry if I was going a little fast, but love to, Kathy, have you respond and any questions that might exist.
Sure. Well, Eric, thank you so much for the overview. For the participants on the phone, as you can see, we have a clear strategy of where we want to go with the council, and Eric was very eloquent talking about the needs here. We need the corporates, we need the MBEs to come together to make this successful. I also feel from a corporate member, a board member over the years, I know with all good intentions, the council has evolved. But one of the things that I've shared with Eric on numerous occasions is that as the corporations have evolved, in some cases, not all, the MBEs, the availability, the qualification and, of some of these MBEs were not there. We wanted to see them succeed. We want to help create the wealth that Eric is talking about because we're looking to grow and develop wasn't there. And I think with the national restructuring, for those of you that are not familiar with some of the changes there, Josette Wright, she is phenomenal. She's getting the ship going in the right direction and making those hard decisions and choices that need to be made. So I think you'll be very excited about where we're going under Eric's leadership, but we need everyone to be on board with this for this to be successful. I know also in the region there's been some gaps over the last year and a half, and part of that is due to the restructuring and some of this going on. So, you know, we had, you know, almost council in every state. Now you're down to, what, 26 councils. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be doing a lot of collaboration with our brother, sister council north, with the D.C. market, the capital region, but also, you know, for those businesses that want to expand to North and South Carolina, where there's a lot of activity in South Carolina. Eric and I had dinner last night, we were talking about that, to expand, and those MBEs that want to do more work on a national scope. So the time is now. I think, you know, we need everyone to think about where do you want to be, if this is going to be a good fit for you at a corporate as well as an MBE. In addition to, you know, we do plan to have more events in this region. I know that is a lot of the feedback that I've received, but we don't want to do events overkill. We want it to have meaning, not to go from one city to the other just to meet the check the box. I think we're all over that. It really has to have some meaning and substance to it. So you'll be hearing shortly some of the events. We are required under the new structure to have 3 core events: a signature event, a business opportunity meeting event, and then an outreach event at Hampton Roads. So I want the participants on the phone to start thinking. Email myself, Eric, Jeff Connolly, who is going to be responsible for this region, and Eric can talk to that about the organizational structure, to know that there is still going to be focus here in Virginia and Hampton Roads, and I didn't want folks to think that, hey, everything's going to be more focused in Carolina. Eric is here when I need him, and he's been fantastic. So, again, very excited about this opportunity, and I'm glad that Eric's on board with us to lead the charge. So thank you, Eric.
Thank you. Thank you. You spoke to structure, and I'll just add, we will maintain a presence in Virginia. We have our office there in Richmond that services the entire state as has before. I have been in the market in Richmond and Newport News and Virginia Beach area, and would say that, you know, we have a national structure that's focused on corporate services and MBE services and development, certification and development. So at the end of the day, we have structured ourselves to make sure we're responding to the needs of our member and constituents. Are there any questions that we received?
Yes, there are. So Eric and Kathy, thanks to both of you. We do have a couple of questions and also a comment, which I will share as well. The first question is coming from Ann Page, and I actually can address that one. The question is, will this presentation be available after this webinar? And the answer to that is yes. So within 24 hours, we'll have a link that's available where you'll be able to have the audio presentation from Eric and Kathy along with the slide presentation that you viewed on your screen. So the answer to that is yes, the presentation will be available to share, to review, and to share with others who were not able to attend the call. The next is from Brad Scott, and it says, "This is fantastic news and has our team excited. Will you be sending the link to the recorded webinar so we can share this content with others in our organization that couldn't attend the call? Good work and thank you." And so I believe my previous comments already addressed that, but I certainly wanted to share that with you all for an excellent presentation this morning. The next comes in from J.R. Locke. This is J.R. Locke, Executive Director of the Hampton University Business Incubator. One important element in the success of this initiative is a strategy to identify corporations who step forward to say, "I am in," whether it's 2 or 20. What's your strategy for bringing these partners to the table, and how do you see business incubators playing a role in your project?
Great question. One, we have corporate members that currently exist, and we're looking to grow that number actually with a goal this current year to increase 15, I would say by 15. That's the goal that I put out for our team. What I think is important, though, as we bring in corporations, we want to make sure we bring in corporations and we're clear about where they are in their continuum for doing this work. So everyone that comes in may not be ready to jump in and have opportunities, and they may have opportunities that are specific to industries. Rather than just bringing them in, and I'll be just totally transparent, to assume to check a box on this work, we want to make sure we're helping them accomplish a strategic goal, and so that means there needs to be a fit with the right MBEs. Secondarily, as they come in, we want to make sure we make the connections that help them grow their program and develop them as well. I'm clear that having worked in business, development is on both sides. There needs to be corporation growth as well, and that kind of growth together will be important. So that increasing the number of corporate members and managing and doing the right kind of what I would call organizational assessments as to where our corporate members need and want MBEs is important. And then the latter part of that question regarding the incubator, I think it's a critical component for strategic partnership. When you think about MBEs that have a continuum from, and this is my words, that some are beginning, some are developing, and some are very mature. The incubator can help with all of them, but clearly those that are beginning and need to and want to work strategically with organizations, the launch and beginning with the support of an incubator is almost an imperative, if not clearly needed, because it helps them have the conversations, get the foundation they need to be able to connect with corporations, so that that first engagement is not just an attempt to see if I get a pass. That is a strategic engagement. It's one that fits in. When I talked about empowerment, an incubator is probably one of the most significant elements to empowerment, because that's a place where our MBEs can really get true and transparent work. And Mr. Lockett, I appreciate the fact that you do that work, and more importantly, that you reached out to engage us to do and work together to increase the opportunities. Very good question.
Thank you. Next, we have a comment from Nicole Francisco. It's awesome presentation, very informative. I look forward to working together in the near future. And then we have one final question from, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing, from Maka Morris. Can you please share the information regarding the timeline on the RAC in Hampton Roads and how we can get involved? Thank you.
Right. Yeah, that's a very good question. One of the things I've mentioned, I don't know if they heard, we are going to be hosting 3 events, signature events in the region. We'll have a signature event, which will be an end-of-the-year event. I've already got the date, December 4th, and we'll get that out. Mm-hmm. It's going to be called Save the Success. And for those of you that recall under the prior Virginia Minority Supplier Development Council, these have the MIC Awards, but we're going to do a little something different, and it's more about an overview review, celebrating our successes, contract awards and all that, and as well use it as a networking opportunity. And then the business opportunity meeting, using that more as we used to do with the Virginia Business Opportunity Fair and having a networking event. And again, as I mentioned earlier, not just having an event to meet, check the box, and we go home and we're back to square one, but really having meaningful conversation in regards to networking and talking about opportunity, and then an outreach event in the region that could be around training and education and business development. I am looking to our corporate members, our MBEs, to tell us what you want. This is your council. This is to support you and your efforts. And so I want to hear from you. Eric wants to hear from you, and obviously Jeff, on what we can do in that. So we'll put some dates around that, but I first wanted to do this call, this webinar, and reach out to everyone to get your feedback, what would be of benefit and value to you. Valerie, if you don't have any more questions, I do have a question for Eric.
Yes.
We did have one final question to come in.
Yes, go ahead. Take that question.
Addressing that. It's from Fatima Caldas. Great presentation. I am very interested in hearing more about implementation of the process for the goal of obtaining contracts.
Yes, we will be, as Kathy just mentioned, getting this RAC established so that there are going to be events, specific events that we're scheduling, 3 in this market. Our annual meeting is next week in Raleigh, North Carolina, and that will be another opportunity to connect with corporate members at MBEs to talk about the contracting process. In our meetings that we set up, we will have matchmakers. The other thing that I want to mention that Kathy talked about, those major and big events are great. We also will plan to have smaller, more intimate events, meetings where the right people are in the room with having the right conversation. And sometimes those have been termed as matchmakers, but in other situations, from my perspective, they're going to be cultural engagements, just so MBEs can get in the room, and we'll be trying to connect the right services and the right opportunities with the right needs. The calendar will be posted on our website of when we'll have our major events, and then totally we'll be looking for strategy from this regional council to say what you need, so that if there's an additional needs in both services and development, that we provide that. I can give you an idea, and Mr. Lockett mentioned, we're working with the incubator in my time over here. We're beginning to do some work there. I'm looking forward to doing that both in a tangible way with incubator and a higher level on some government requirements and state policy. Working with Donia Story, who's doing education and boot camp around working with the government. We'll have an additional boot camp to focus on developing from beginning soup to nuts, strategic planning and growth. And then we don't want to presume that we know what you want. We really need to hear from MBEs around what you need to develop from a matchmaking standpoint.
Very good point.
Thanks to both of you. That did end the Q&A portion, wrapping up our last question. And so, Kathy, Eric, closing questions or comments?
Yes, I have a question for Eric. For those of us, Eric, that have had the experience with Embasys, trying to find suppliers, and the challenges in that, can you speak to, from a technology standpoint, some of the things that are forthcoming with the national initiative with technology, and how that's going to get better for us corporate members and MBEs?
Yeah, one of the new transition elements of national is PRISM, which is going to replace Embasys. And I didn't have the experience with Embasys, but I've heard enough to know that PRISM is going to be a tremendous success. Like all technology, and I'm not a technical person, it's not going to go all the way to bright once installed, but what it will provide is much easier access for our MBEs and our corporate members to connect online. We actually have a PRISM presentation next week at our annual meeting. the PRISM developer, is going to be at the annual meeting. She will be presenting and providing clarity around the services that PRISM will create. That's really, technology is really a necessary part of how we do work, and it's an exciting elevation of how we can help make sure our corporate members and MBEs connect.
Okay.
Great question.
Thank you so much. And I think if you can, Eric, once you get that and we can get that information, we can get that out to our
Sure.
corporates and
Exactly.
our MBEs
Yeah.
so they can understand exactly what they can be expecting, because I know some of us have, we're glad to hear that news about the transition to PRISM. So.
Okay. And I'd just like to leave a message for our members, corporate and MBEs. It's important, if you have a need, to reach out. Jeff Conley at cvmsdc.org can be contacted to discuss how you get involved and get engaged. In Jeff's word, Jeff needs you. So you can reach Jeff at his email, Jeff, Jeff Conley, Conley, C-O-N-L-E-Y, at cvmsdc.org. And we will, if we can, Valerie, add that to the information that we send out so that Jeff can make sure that he's got connection with the folks here.
Absolutely. And to confirm, that email address is Jeff, Jeff, Conley, C-O-N-L-E-Y, at cvmsdc.org. Is that correct?
You, that's correct. Thank you.
Correct.
Thank you, Valerie.
Welcome. So again, our thanks and appreciation to Eric Watson and Kathy Williams, and certainly on behalf of the entire council and network, we thank you all for taking time out to join us this morning. We look forward to seeing you at the annual meeting next week on Thursday, January 23rd at the Embassy Suite in the Raleigh-Durham Airport, Briar Creek area. Have a great afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.